Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey, actually, into your own mind, exploring why you think and behave the way you do. We've got a great collection of insights here, drawn from cognitive psychology, neuroscience, basically stuff that sheds light on everyday decisions, how we perceive things.
Yeah, and our mission today, right, is to kind of pull out those key insights, the non-obvious things about our psychology.
Exactly. Things that can give you, the listeners, some real tools for, understanding yourself better and navigating the world.
It's quite something, isn't it? How much of this, even though it's based on solid research, just feels familiar from our own lives?
Totally. We all have that gut feeling about why we do things.
But the science often reveals these surprising layers underneath, things we don't consciously grasp.
Right. And to kick things off, one of the sources tells this, frankly bizarre story about an attempted drugstore robbery.
Oh yeah, I remember reading that one.
Not career criminals, just coworkers arguing over cigarettes. Seemingly normal people making these incredibly high-risk choices, getting seriously hurt.
Even though they had all the information to act way more sensibly.
Exactly. They just didn't. It makes you pause and ask, why do we sometimes make such illogical decisions? Intelligent beings.
That really is the core puzzle, isn't it? And it's a perfect way into the complexities of human psychology.
That story sets the stage nicely.
It does, because, as the source points out, we all have this basic understanding of psychology just from living, right? Emotions, motivations, trying to control ourselves.
Oh, yeah. You know that feeling of being totally thrilled or completely fed up or trying so hard not to eat that second cookie? We get it.
We navigate that internal landscape daily. But the real challenge for psychology, and what we want to get into today, is finding that deeper level, beyond intuition.
Digging beneath the surface why we act the way we do.
Precisely. And it's crucial, as our source notes, that these insights are grounded in everyday life details.
Not just abstract theories floating around.
Exactly. It's about how these principles play out in real, ordinary situations, often with pretty surprising results.
Yeah, results that make you really stop and think.
And this focus on real life helps avoid what the source calls reductionism, that urge to simplify everything.
Trying to put messy human behavior into neat little boxes.
Yeah, you lose the sloppiness of reality that way. You can't just analyze bits in isolation. Psychology is all interconnected.
Okay, so let's get into that messiness then. One huge insight from cognitive psychology lately, and the source goes deep on this, is how much of our lives, our minds, just run on autopilot.
We like to think we're consciously deciding everything.
Steering the ship, right?
But really, our thinking is guided by, literally hundreds of biases, and many of them are often misguided.
Hundreds. Wow, that sounds like a lot to keep track of.
It can seem that way, but the key is they aren't random. They often stem from basic human needs like needing certainty or closure or social connection.
Okay, so these needs kind of push our thinking down certain paths, even if they aren't perfectly logical.
You got it. It's like built-in default settings, quick ways to navigate, but sometimes the settings are a bit off.
Makes sense.
And what's really interesting is how consistent the findings are coming out of labs everywhere. Despite our amazing analytical power, we're all prone to these biases.
So our thinking isn't always that neat, rational, step-by-step thing we imagine.
Not nearly as much as we might think.
Now, the source also mentioned something called brain seduction. What's that about?
Brain seduction. It's this tendency, especially lately, to overemphasize neuroscience findings. To say everything boils down to brain activity.
Like my brain scan proves X, so that's the whole story, kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. And neuroscience is incredible, don't get me wrong. The progress since, say, 2011 in understanding the brain behavior link is huge. But the insights we're focusing on today, they mostly come from cognitive psychology, looking at mental processes, memory, attention, decisions.
Right. How we process info, not just what neurons are firing.
Exactly. The source is careful to keep the focus there, using real-life examples, not just brain scans.
Got it. So speaking of processing info, the brain is always active, right? Even when we're zoning out.
Absolutely. Constantly working. Think about walking into a new office for the first time. Bit uncertain, maybe?
Yeah, a little disoriented.
Well, behind the scenes, your brain is working like crazy, taking in sights, sounds, smells, building a mental map.
Like creating a blueprint on the fly.
Exactly. It's a pattern-detecting machine, comparing the new place to familiar ones, making predictions to help you feel comfortable, It builds a whole micro-world for that place.
Always looking for patterns, making predictions. Seems efficient.
It is, but things get interesting when the patterns don't quite fit, or when our categories aren't as neat as we think.
Like with emotions. We think anger lives in one spot.
Right, but it's not that simple. Emotions come from complex interactions across many brain regions. No single anger switch.
Okay, and memory too. It's not like a perfect recording.
Not at all. We think of memory as like files or books on a shelf.
Right.
Perfectly stored.
Yeah.
But the source explains, even vivid memories like a childhood roller coaster ride aren't stored complete in one place.
So what happens?
They get reconstructed every time we recall them, and that reconstruction process, it means they aren't always 100% accurate.
So my crystal clear memory of that terrifying drop might be slightly edited.
It's likely a mix. The actual event, your feelings then, how you've thought about it since, memory's dynamic, not a perfect playback.
That's kind of unsettling. Which leads to the next point. If our minds are flawed, our thinking biased, what's the point of even knowing about it?
That's a great question, and the source tackles it directly. Initially, the author thought they'd just list biases.
Like a catalog of brain errors.
Yeah, but they realized just knowing isn't that helpful by itself. A lot of books stop there.
Right. It's like knowing you should exercise more but still staying on the couch.
Exactly. There's a big gap between awareness and actually doing something about it. Bridging that gap, getting from knowing to acting, that's just as vital as identifying the biases in the first place.
And this gets to what really drives us, right?
Yeah.
Not just avoiding errors, but fundamental needs.
Precisely. And one uniquely human drive, this intense desire for feeling right.
Yes. The need for certainty.
We crave it, and that craving powerfully shapes how we handle information. Think about a time you were sure you were right, then found out you weren't. That feeling.
Yeah. Not pleasant.
It's more than just dislike. It's a deep need for our internal worldview to feel consistent, accurate.
Makes total sense. Nobody likes being wrong.
And the source uses this surprising analogy, orcas hunting great white sharks.
Orcas, how do they fit in?
Well, orcas are incredibly smart predators, but unlike us, they aren't burdened with this existential baggage of craving certainty. Their brains evolved for clear survival needs. Their learning is cultural. Different pods have different hunting tricks, almost like memes passed down.
So their intelligence is focused on survival, not this abstract need to be right all the time.
Exactly. Their path is clearer. Our brains, with our vast abilities, face a much more complex world. And that desire to feel right, it can actually lead us astray because things are so complex and nuanced.
Which brings us back to missing the obvious. Like that story about Phil, the building inspector.
Oh yeah, that's a classic example. His brain got fixated on a pattern, a rule, lights on equals success, reinforced over and over.
So checking rooms became super efficient, just looking for lights.
Totally. But then he hits the exception, the dark room with the student. His brain didn't stop, didn't question, just applied the old rule.
And completely missed the student right there. His certainty blinded him.
Exactly. His marriage to certainty, as the source calls it. It shows how vital it is to slow down sometimes. Question that feeling of being right, especially when things don't fit the pattern.
And getting locked into one view ties into framing situations, right?
Yeah.
Like the drugstore robbery again.
Absolutely. Ed and Ned's internal frames. Ed thinking he could overpower the guy. Ned overrating his fighting skills.
They ignored huge risks, like Ed's broken finger.
Because their internal story convinced them they were in control, they were trapped in their frame.
Lost the bigger picture.
Right. And the source also uses that classic Asian flu scenario. It shows how framing info as gains versus losses totally flips decisions.
Even when the odds are identical.
Yep. People are risk-averse with gains, saving lives, but risk-seeking with losses, people dying. Same outcome, different frame, different choice.
Wow. Just the wording changes everything. Then there's the hat vendor story at the Great Wall. Misframing in translation.
Yeah, that one's slightly different. The host got clear, credible advice from his friend Mark. Don't engage this way, it'll end badly.
But he did it anyway.
He did. He framed it based on his own assumptions, maybe politeness, whatever. He failed to use what's called heuristic override.
Okay, heuristic override. Let's unpack that. Heuristics are mental shortcuts.
Exactly. Simple rules of thumb, usually helpful, save us time and effort, but sometimes they lead us wrong.
So override is stopping the shortcut.
It's recognizing the shortcut isn't working here and consciously using more deliberate thought, more outside info to correct course.
In the hat vendor case, His be polite heuristic should have been overridden by Mark's specific warning.
Pretty much. He needed to step back, analyze, and maybe go against that initial impulse.
Gotcha. Knowing when to trust the gut and when to hit the brakes.
Precisely. Now, once we do form a belief, another big bias kicks in. Confirmation bias.
Ah, the classic. Seeking out stuff that proves us right, ignoring anything that doesn't.
We all do it, right? The source uses the sports fan example, only reading fan sites, dismissing criticism.
Looking for validation, not objective truth. Have you ever caught yourself doing that? Maybe scrolling through news feeds that just echo what you already think?
Oh, absolutely. It's like we build a protective bubble around our beliefs.
Yeah.
And the Shroud of Turin case is presented as a more extreme example. Deep spiritual beliefs overriding strong scientific evidence, the radiocarbon dating showing it's medieval.
But believers find ways around it, like the claim of invisible words skewing the dates.
Exactly. It shows the incredible pull of existing beliefs.
And the washing the dog scenario, how does that fit?
That shows how it can subtly warp memory. You selectively recall things, maybe conveniently forgetting the last time you washed the dog, to support the belief it's someone else's turn.
Our memory shifts to fit our desired narrative. Sneaky.
It is. And shaking these false beliefs is incredibly hard, even with direct evidence. Like that Ki master, Ryukarin.
The guy with this supposed touchless attack who got publicly beaten.
Yeah. Despite that very clear debunking, many supporters just rationalized it, made excuses rather than abandon their belief.
It's like the brain defends its core beliefs at all costs.
That's basically it. Challenging a core schema, a mental framework, feels like a threat. The amygdala threat center fires up, the ventral striatum reward center quiets down. It feels bad.
So the brain prefers stability, even if it's wrong.
Generally, yes. It'll try to dismiss the conflicting info, ignore it, or label it an outlier rather than change the whole belief system. It's just easier.
Sticking with what we know feels safer than facing uncertainty.
You got it. And this can lead to patternicity, seeing patterns and meaning everywhere.
Finding connections even in random noise.
That's the idea. Some theorists even suggest an innate supersense pushing us to believe in unseen forces, patterns, essences. Often leads to supernatural beliefs that bind groups together.
Like seeing faces in clouds or thinking a run of coincidences must mean something.
Exactly. The example of seeing the number 429 everywhere before a flight. That anxiety, that's the pattern detector working overtime, creating meaning from randomness.
And the meaning comes from us, not the numbers themselves. But it feels real.
It really does. It's easy to get caught up in a compelling story, even if rationally you know it's likely just chance.
That personal story about the weird smell, the breathing sound, the robin in the snow, that really hit home. How we try to string random things together, especially after a tragedy, to find a why.
It's a powerful example of the brain's search for agency, assigning cause, finding responsibility, even for random events or objects. It's a way to create closure, understand randomness. Daniel Dennett calls it the intentional stance.
We're wired to look for causes, even when it's just stuff happening. Okay, shifting slightly. Short-term rewards and overcommitment. That's relatable.
Oh yeah, the example of saying yes to a new work project 6 months out, even when you're already swamped.
Guilty.
It shows how we prioritize the immediate reward appearing helpful, maybe over the future consequences. That future you feels like someone else.
With unlimited energy, apparently.
Exactly. Car salespeople use this too, right? Focus on the thrill of driving away now, downplay the long-term loan payments, the warranty details.
The immediate gratification clouds the future commitment.
And we do it all the time, agreeing to help a friend when we're already overloaded, just to get that immediate yes reward.
Like the junior staffer planning the client dinner months away just to get it off their plate now.
Prioritizing immediate relief over careful planning later. Short-term gain, potential long-term pain. Our brains often favor that quick hit.
Okay, now the wandering mind, the default network, what's going on there?
So the default network is a set of brain regions, medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, parietal cortex that fires up when we're not focused on a specific external task. Mind on autopilot.
So, like when I'm daydreaming or just spacing out?
Pretty much. It's also triggered by stress, boredom, chaos, fatigue. And interestingly, research by Dan Gilbert at Harvard found we report being less happy when our minds wander.
Which is apparently almost half the time. 46%.
According to his research, yeah. Maybe because we often replay stressful stuff when we wander.
But even if we're less happy, our brain likes going there. It's the default.
It seems so. It's a well-worn biological path, but too much wandering can lead to obsessive rumination, getting stuck in negative loops.
Being able to consciously pull your mind back is key then.
It helps. But the default network is strongest when we're least aware we've drifted off.
Makes sense. Easy to get lost in thought. What about distractions? Our world is full of them.
Well, our brains are actually pretty good at filtering out big, obvious distractions.
Yeah.
It's the subtle, under-the-radar ones that are often more disruptive. We adapt to the loud noise, but not the constant little pings.
Like smartphone notifications, even just the buzz.
Exactly. Even if you don't look, those little sounds or vibrations trigger task-irrelevant thoughts. They fragment attention.
So it's the constant drip, drip, drip of small interruptions that wears down our focus.
That seems to be the case. Some studies suggest subtle distractions cause bigger brain reactions than overt ones. It's what our brains struggle to block out.
Which leads us neatly into e-media. Its impact is huge.
Definitely. When immersive e-media first arrived, there was awe, but maybe an underestimation of its long-term effects.
Things went further than just online role-play.
Much further. Think internet cafes becoming 247 hubs, extreme cases of neglect, unforeseen consequences.
It opened up a whole new area for potential compulsive behaviors.
And the neurochemistry is similar to other addictions dopamine in the ventral tegmental area. While genetics play a role, anyone's brain could potentially get hooked with enough exposure. Addiction pathways aren't picky.
And the source mentions loneliness too, in this digital age.
Yeah, John Cacioppo's work. Loneliness isn't just being alone, it's feeling isolated. His study showed lonely individuals' brains react differently to social images, especially conflict.
So paradoxically, more online connection, but maybe more feelings of loneliness for some.
It's a complex issue. Virtual personalities might become surrogates for real connection, blurring the lines of perceived reality in our brains.
Spending so much time online must shape perception somehow. But it's not a simple media causes X thing, right?
Absolutely not. Media doesn't directly cause behavior. We all bring our own psychology, personality, beliefs, mood to it. It's the interaction between us and the media that influences us, subtly or significantly.
Okay. Let's shift to achievement and motivation. What makes us strive?
The source starts with Mike's story, Low Achiever Turned Industry Master. It shows change is possible.
Right.
Research shows high achievers often return to tough tasks after interruptions. But here's a twist. Prime high achievers with achievement words. Then give them a word search labeled fun.
They do worse.
Worse than low achievers in that study. Suggests framing is key. High achievers might need to see it as a challenge, not just fun.
Interesting. So task framing really matters based on who you are.
There's also the N effect. More competitors can actually lower motivation. Knowing that can help in things like job interviews.
That's intuitive.
And another paradoxical finding, students predicting they'd do worst often did best, maybe motivated to avoid disappointment, lower personal pressure.
A bit of pessimism as a motivator. Wild.
And asking yourself if you can do something seems more motivating than telling yourself you will.
Like, can I solve this versus I will solve this? More engaging?
Seems so. It prompts more active internal processing, figuring out the how.
Useful tip. Now, self-control and commitment.
Yeah.
Where many of us stumble.
Oh, definitely. The diabetes patient's promising to lose weight to avoid insulin shots. It highlights how hard long-term commitment is, even with serious stakes.
Our brains don't always help, do they?
They often seem to have counter moves. Calorie restriction lowers metabolism. Carb deprivation triggers cravings. It's like they fight back.
Feels that way sometimes.
And there's a disconnect between what we say about our self-control and what we do. People rating themselves high on impulse control might choose tempting snacks more readily.
But then be less likely to actually resist later.
Exactly. And the smoker study, those told they had high self-control exposed themselves to more temptation and failed more often.
So overconfidence and willpower can be dangerous.
It seems so. Then there's the what the hell effect.
The diet slip-up spiral. Messed up once, might as well finish the cake.
Precisely. A small deviation triggers abandonment. And related is moral self-regulation, moral cleansing, and licensing.
Balancing our good deeds and bad deeds.
Yeah, doing something good might make us feel licensed to slack off later, or doing bad might make us seek to cleanse with a good deed. It's a subconscious seesaw.
We're not always rational moral accountants.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one is huge. Wanting something is often stronger than the satisfaction of getting it.
That's a really core theme.
Right.
Think Wile E. Coyote. The chase is everything. If he caught the Roadrunner, the cartoon's over.
The anticipation is more powerful than the arrival.
Often, yes. Getting the thing can lead to emptiness. Now what? Regret. That regret can even start before you get it, as the shine wears off the anticipation.
The journey beats the destination, and sometimes the destination isn't what we imagined. And regret itself, it's useful but tricky.
Absolutely. It's a learning tool via counterfactual thinking, imagining what if.
Thinking about how things could have been different helps us learn?
It can, yes. Learning from mistakes, but dwelling endlessly on what should have happened without any learning, that leads to negative emotions, even depression. Use it constructively, don't get stuck.
Harness the lesson, avoid the spiral. Got it. Okay, interacting with others. First impressions. How much do they matter?
They have a surprisingly lasting impact. Neural systems are buzzing during initial encounters. And then there's Thomas, the human oxytocin-mediated attachment system. Paul Zek's idea: when someone shows trust, it can release oxytocin in us, making us trust them back.
So apparent trust can lower our guard, make us vulnerable.
Potentially, yes. Our vigilant prefrontal cortex might take a backseat. Useful to remember.
Definitely. And our social circles, they change a lot.
Research shows high turnover. Maybe half our close friends change over 7 years, though the network size stays stable. How we meet people matters too.
And when we pick new people, we rely on shortcuts.
Often, yeah. Especially if we lack clear info. In-group members expect better treatment, but picking new people, we often fall back on stereotypes, perceived similarity, not always rational criteria. Neuroscience even shows brain structures linked to social biases.
Our judgments aren't always objective. What about fairness, the ultimatum game?
Fascinating stuff. People often reject unfair offers, even if it means getting nothing. Fairness, resisting unfairness, can outweigh pure economic gain.
It's about integrity, dignity, not wanting to be treated like a doormat.
Seems like it. A concern for internal consistency. But in real life, it's hard to judge quickly if taking a short-term hit to dignity serves a long-term interest. Complex trade-offs.
Immediate feelings versus rational calculation. Tough call. Now, the idea we're not fully independent.
Right. We're fundamentally social, wired for interdependence. We seek others' opinions partly to validate ourselves.
But too much reliance can hold us back.
It can hinder growth. Risk-taking, finding that balance is key.
And wanting to belong drives conformity.
Definitely. We conform to group norms, especially with things seen as good for the group, like practical items, toothpaste maybe. It's about identity conformance or group choice, convergence.
Fitting in with the tribe. Okay, cognitive fluency, easy messages are easier to believe.
Pretty much. Our brains like easy to process info that fits what we already know. Short, pithy, repeated messages feel familiar, fluent, and true.
Even if they aren't factually sound.
Repetition breeds acceptance. Advertisers, politicians know this. 3 to 5 repetitions is often optimal for that illusion of truth.
Scary how easily familiarity becomes belief. Narrative and metaphor are powerful too.
Hugely. Even fictional TV characters can sway views on real issues like organ donation, especially with emotional connection.
But that power can spread misinformation too.
For sure. And metaphors shape thinking subtly but profoundly. Crime as beast leads to enforcement ideas. Crime as virus leads to social reform ideas. Just changing the metaphor changes the solutions people favor.
Amazing. And even our handedness affects judgment. Righties like right, lefties like left.
Bizarre, right? But studies show it. Righties associate good with their right side, bad with left, and vice versa.
And you can change it temporarily with ski gloves.
Yeah. Making someone functionally left-handed with a glove shifted their preference. It links physical fluency, how easily we act, with abstract judgment. Body and mind are deeply connected.
Wow. Our physical state influences abstract thought. Okay, emotional contagion. Emotions spread.
Oh, yes. Happiness, blame, fear, they're contagious. The Framingham Heart Study showed happiness spreads up to 3 degrees of separation, boosts future happiness, strengthens bonds, though distance limits it.
And blame spreads too, to protect our self-image.
Seems so. But affirming your own values can be an antidote. And mimicry. Good for connection, but can make it harder to spot lies.
Being too in sync hinders deception detection. Interesting trade-off. External factors also sway us, like room temperature.
Yep. Holding a warm drink makes us perceive others as warmer, socially closer. Cold drink, the opposite. Warmer rooms, more concrete language, suggesting social closeness.
And heavy backpacks make hills look steeper.
Jessica Witt's research. We see the world based on our ability to act in it right now. Perception isn't purely objective.
Fascinating. Our immediate state colors our view of reality. Now, memory. We know it's shaky.
Very shaky. That EPA lead poisoning campaign study, people were sure they saw an ad they hadn't, based on fragments glued together mentally.
Most memories aren't recordings, just impressions, getting fuzzier over time.
Exactly. And the brain reconstructs them, which invites errors, false memories.
Like the Apple logo drawing test. We see it constantly but can't draw it accurately.
Because the brain saves energy, it creates just a gist memory, not a detailed blueprint.
And misinformation can actively distort memories. Doctored videos, false suggestions.
Alarmingly easily, it can shape memories, create false details, even lead to false accusations. And the trust trap, trusting a source, once makes us vulnerable to their later misinformation.
And just knowing an event type is common makes it seem more plausible it happened to us.
Yeah, prevalence information boosts plausibility, making false beliefs easier to form.
Memory is so vulnerable. What about deliberate practice versus just trying hard?
Crucial difference. Just starting or putting in general effort isn't enough for real skill. You need deliberate practice-focused work on specific skills needed for your goal. Anders Ericsson's work.
Undirected effort is just draining. Doesn't lead to mastery.
It can lead to burnout without real progress. Experts develop specialized automatic skills through this focused practice, not just general problem solving. Think of burglar's routine versus general searching.
Quality over quantity, targeted effort.
Okay, after all this, what are the big practical takeaways? How can we use this?
Great question. There are loads, but let's hit some highlights people can actually use.
Okay.
1. Be aware of your beliefs. Everyone's biased. Question things gently. 2. Make goals tangible, measurable. Track progress with feedback. 3. Remember wanting often beats getting. Be mindful of the chase, ready to walk away.
Ask, don't tell. Frame motivation as questions, can I?
Exactly. Be mindful of how you want others to see you. It affects your first impression. Fight habituation, consciously recall past variety. Practice metacognition, think about your thinking. Know that emotions spread anxiety, blame. Be aware in groups.
Right. Know when heuristics mislead, engage override. Sometimes just doing anything is a goal. Be skeptical of emotional forecasts. We're bad at predicting feelings.
Use checklists, memory fails. Use counterfactuals for learning, not dwelling.
Be critical of repeated messages. Familiarity breeds acceptance. Be wary of easy info-fluency aids learning, but also propaganda. Remember, moral licensing good deeds can allow bad ones later.
All beliefs feel the same to the brain processing them. Make peace with probability. Luck is often just chance.
Serve others. Even small ways boosts resilience. Doubt your Thomas trust can be exploited. Modeling is huge. Watch who influences you, how you influence others.
Loneliness and conflict are linked. Be mindful of escapism, potential compulsion with media.
Layer tasks smartly if multitasking, or better, shift task. Beware the mirage of media perfection.
Wow, that's a lot to digest, but incredibly useful. It really paints a picture of how complex and sometimes counterintuitive our minds are.
Yeah, the main thing I think is understanding our brains are often on autopilot, swayed by biases, and our perceptions, our memories, are way more malleable than we think.
Knowing that gives you a new lens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For understanding yourself and others.
Definitely.
So for everyone listening, think about one time, just one instance, where maybe one of these quirks played a role in a decision you made, or how you saw something. With what you know now, would you do anything differently?
It's a fascinating process, that self-reflection.
It really is. And this is just scratching the surface.
Whoa, absolutely. It's a huge field. For anyone wanting to go deeper, there are fantastic resources out there. Authors like David DiSalvo, Norman Doidge, Robert Sapolsky. So much great work exploring the mind.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning.